The Christ risen. These words captured the entire meaning of our existence, for we were not made for death, but for life. In Easter speech hours before his death, Francis called for an end to the wars in Gaza, Ukraine, and Sudan. When Pope Francis looked over thousands of Catholics who had gathered in St. Peter's Square on Easter Sunday, he had prepared a speech that looked over at a world replete with pockets of conflict and called for an end to the wars in Gaza, Ukraine, and Sudan. Too infirm to read aloud more than a few phrases, Francis sat while an aide delivered his Easter speech. A celebration of life amid the rumble of death that he said was growing across the world. Francis's papacy began in a different, more peaceful time. In 2013, Russia had not yet annexed Crimea. Syria's civil war was bloody, but had not yet dragged in large foreign powers. Migration to Europe was not yet deemed a crisis. In a speech delivered just hours before his death, Francis listed 11 countries and 6 regions now racked by conflict, surveying a world sliding further into war and disorder. What a great thirst for death, for killing, we witness each day in the many conflicts raging in different parts of our world. How much contempt is stirred up at times towards the vulnerable, the marginalized, and migrants, Francis said. He prayed for Christian communities in Lebanon and Syria, constructive dialogue to help resolve famine in Yemen, peace in Sudan and South Sudan, and he prayed for victims of violence in the Democratic Republic of Congo. He also mentioned a nascent ceasefire after years of civil war in Myanmar was a slim sign of hope. The pontiff prayed for a just and lasting peace in Ukraine and decried the sufferings of people in Gaza, where the terrible conflict continues to cause death and destruction. Francis, a fervent critic of Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza, ramped up his censures in recent months, calling the conflict very serious and shameful in January. Let's look around what happened after the Pope's speech. Pope Francis has died on Easter Monday, aged 88. Pope Francis died on Easter Monday, April 21st, 2025, at the age of 88, at his residence in the Vatican's Casa Santa Marta. At 9:45 a.m., Cardinal Kevin Farrell, Camerlengo of the Holy Roman Church, announced the death of Pope Francis from the Casa Santa Marta with these words: "Dearest brothers and sisters, with deep sorrow, I must announce the death of our Holy Father Francis." At 7:35 this morning, the Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the house of the Father. His entire life was dedicated to the service of the Lord and of his Church. He taught us to live the values of the gospel with fidelity, courage, and universal love, especially in favor of the poorest and most marginalized. With immense gratitude for his example as a true disciple of the Lord Jesus, we commend the soul of Pope Francis to the infinite merciful love of the one and triune God. The director of the Holy See Press Office, Matteo Bruni, told journalists later on Monday that the late Pope's body could be transferred to St. Peter's Basilica on Wednesday morning so that the faithful may pray before his mortal remains. The translation of the Holy Father's mortal remains to the Vatican Basilica for the veneration of all the faithful may take place on the morning of Wednesday, April 23, 2025, according to the arrangements that shall be determined and communicated tomorrow, following the first congregation of the cardinals, Mr. Bruni said. The Pope was admitted to the Agostino Gemelli Polyclinic Hospital on Friday, February 14, 2025, after suffering from a bout of bronchitis for several days. Pope Francis's clinical situation gradually worsened, and his doctors diagnosed bilateral pneumonia on Tuesday, February 18th. After 38 days in hospital, the late Pope returned to his Vatican residence at the Casa Santa Marta to continue his recovery. In 1957, in his early 20s, Jorge Mario Bergoglio underwent surgery in his native Argentina to remove a portion of his lung that had been affected by a severe respiratory infection. As he aged, Pope Francis frequently suffered bouts of respiratory illnesses, even canceling a planned visit to the United Arab Emirates in November 2023 due to influenza and lung inflammation. In April 2024, the late Pope Francis